Now, the 747 took the first shuttle, which was named Columbia, to the Kennedy Space Center for its very first flight, for the first flight of the shuttle. At that time, it was 1979 when the 747 ferried it across the country and it landed it in Florida. When people saw the landing and they looked at the shuttle as it sat on top of the 747, they were quite alarmed because the shuttle was missing quite a few of its heat protective silica tiles. Now, these tiles are made of silica, basically very pure sand melted down and turned into fibers mixed with other materials to create a very lightweight but very heat resistant tile. In fact, they reject heat so well that you can stick one in an oven and heat it up until it's glowing hot and take it out, and if you're very careful you can handle it by the edges without hurting your fingers. And you can see in this photograph that's exactly what this fellow is doing. The problem with these tiles is that they're rather delicate and they can be easily damaged. The picture on the right shows a damaged tile, and that was a real concern for shuttle planners. They did not want to have a situation where you launch the shuttle into space and you end up with missing tiles or dented tiles that would not protect in that spot against the heat of reentry. So this was a very big concern. What had happened on the 747 flight was that the aerodynamic forces had caused the tiles to tear off in many places, and so that was a concern because you'd certainly have a lot of aerodynamic forces acting on the orbiter during launch. So they came up with a huge program to improve the adhesive that stuck the tiles to the orbiter and figure out ways to make them stick better. And that was one of the things that ended up delaying the shuttle's first flight. And all that time, the crew of the first shuttle flight was getting ready and training very hard in the simulator, and here you see them. On the left is Apollo and Gemini veteran John Young, and he was the commander, and his co-pilot was a rookie named Bob Crippen. And here they are in a simulator, a mock-up of the, a working mock-up of the shuttle's cockpit up on the flight deck of the shuttle. Well, on April 12th, 1981, John Young and Bob Crippen were inside the shuttle Columbia, and here's what it looked like when they lifted off. There go the main engines on the orbiter that burn liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. They're getting up to thrust, and when they get up to thrust, the solids ignite and the whole thing lifts off. There it goes, off the same pad that Apollo 11 went off. And that was how the first shuttle flight started. April 12, 1981 happens to be 20 years to the day since Yuri Gagarin was the first person to fly in space. So it was completely by chance, but it ended up being a rather auspicious coincidence. Well, the first shuttle flight was a great success, and the shuttle went on to be reused. They brought in not only the orbiter Columbia, but other shuttle orbiters came into service. And on these later flights, you saw not only pilots, but scientists. And these scientists were a new breed of astronaut. They included women and minorities. Here you see Sally Ride, who was a physicist before she became an astronaut, on her first flight, STS-7, in June of 1983 as the first American woman in space. And these astronauts who performed the non-flying part of shuttle missions, like operating the remote manipulator arm the robot arm, to grab satellites. They were also the crew members who did the spacewalks when that was required. They were called mission specialists. And so with their arrival in the program, the astronaut corps really evolved with a whole new dimension. Now, the program was also an international program. The shuttle program became an international program for a couple of different reasons. NASA wanted to help defray the cost of the program, and if they could get other countries to build modules for the shuttle and components in exchange for participation in shuttle flights, well, that would be a big savings. The other reason was that politically it was a good idea because the threat of cancellation was still looming over them as they were planning this, and they thought, well, if we have other countries involved, it'll be harder to cancel the program. So the European Space Agency, which is a consortium of many European nations, developed a module called Spacelab that could be flown up into space in the shuttle's payload bay, and that's where it would stay for the whole mission. And it was like a little, well, not so little, it was a laboratory module that you could float into through a tunnel that led from the shuttle cabin. And several missions of the shuttle used this space lab. The first time that happened was in November of 1983, and that was STS-9, and that included the first non-American to fly on a U.S. space mission, a German cosmonaut or astronaut named Ulf Merbold. Now, at the same time, Canada made a very important contribution to the shuttle by developing the remote manipulator system, also known as Canadarm, which was the main tool that the astronauts used when they grabbed satellites, used them to manipulate large payloads, and also space assembly tasks. So that's just a couple of aspects of the shuttle's international components. Well, here is one of the more spectacular or exciting elements of shuttle flights. They finally tested in space, in the vacuum of space, a manned maneuvering unit. And what I'm going to show you now is a video from a shuttle flight in February of 1984 of an astronaut named Bruce McCandless, who actually helped develop the manned maneuvering unit, and now he flies it in its first test flight, and it's also the first time that anybody has taken a spacewalk without a tether, without any kind of connecting cord or umbilical or even a safety line. And you'll see in this video that he flies the MMU out to a distance of 300 feet from the shuttle orbiter. So here he is rising out of the payload bay. And there he is. You can see his face through the clear visor of his helmet. Here he is floating some distance away from the shuttle and part of Africa in the background. Really spectacular footage. And here he is as he is going away from the shuttle to further and further distances. And he's getting to be quite a long ways away. And by the farthest he went, he was 300 feet away from the shuttle. And that was a pretty spectacular mission, and a long time coming for people who were dreaming of seeing astronauts fly like Buck Rogers.